All right,
That
here we
isn't
go.
it.
It's the Women's World Cup review, and we've got
That it is.
a, I mean, long time trusted brother of the show here. Yeah, Ronnie from the Footy Misfits, as they call him in his own crew, Mr. Misfits himself, is what I've come to realize. Ronnie, tell us about your experience with this Women's World Cup. Say hi and go into it if you want. Feel free to rant.
um,
By the way, if he is wearing a
I
Spain jersey,
leg-
I'm wearing an England jersey, so it's cool. We've got the final here balanced out. Congratulations to Spain for winning the Women's World Cup. Just go ahead and then dive in.
yes, La Roja. Um, hey man, once a Spanish team, once they made it to the final, I'm like, okay, I have my rooting interest. If Australia made the final, I would have been torn. But it was England. It made my decision very easy. Um, this Women's World Cup, best I've ever seen. And I had my fears that the expansion to 32 would dilute the competition. And I know we spoke about this when you came on to preview with us. The relatively late start to the tournament, like clashing with the first couple of weeks of this European seasons, would also like take the attention away. Admittedly, it did for a lot of people, but like not as much as I thought it would. To be honest, I like the Premier League started. Yeah, we don't really care about that Women's World Cup anymore. It wasn't anything like that, and I think Australia was like a very good case in point in that they stopped Australian rules football matches when Australia were in the penalty shootout against France. Sorry, by the way,
Yeah,
but
that was tough.
no, but like they legit stopped matches so everyone could watch those shootouts. Like that, like it's just so. It was a seminal moment. This World Cup really brought out the best in, I think, everybody that competed. We didn't get like a 13-0 this World Cup. We got ass whoopings here and there, but for the most part, everybody who was at the World Cup played okay, win or lose. Like the one team that stands out, Haiti, they kept England to a 1-0 draw. I mean 1-0 result. The eventual finalist, England, to a 1-0 result. And then they did the same against Denmark and lost 2-0 to China. The Philippines is another great story. A lot of players who have some type of American roots, they got their first ever win against the hosts. So stories like that. And then as we get down to the tournament, just seeing like a lot of the heavy hitters not live up to that like title, I guess you can say. Germany crashing out of the group stage.
Brazil.
They were complete. Brazil crashing out of the group stage. The U.S. crashing out of the round of 16, and they were legit a goal off the bar away from getting crashed out of the group stage by Portugal. And by the way, I think that people who think that the U.S. women are immune from criticism is crazy. It's hilarious. Um, and then just the fact that we have a first-time World Cup winner, it it goes to show you that the women's game has been growing immensely. Everyone has caught up to the U.S. I don't think we can say people are catching up to the U.S. I think we're caught up now.
Yeah, I agree. Completely agree.
We're definitely caught up, and again, so many great stories at this World Cup. I don't like just the fact that that it ended a couple hours ago. It's just like, damn. Now what?
It flew by. There was something about, because here's the thing: is it was the exact same format as the men's World Cup, but it felt like it was 1 week shorter. Like it felt like everything happened so much quicker. And maybe that's just because the games were in the middle of the night all the time. For us
What,
in the
this World Cup?
US, yeah, it just like there was, like, for instance, there was um there were games that were like there was a group stage that was wrapped up, or one of the groups was wrapped up with the simultaneous kickoffs already having been done before the
Mm,
second match day. It was like Group A was wrapped up before Group H had played its second game or something weird like that. And it was just,
yeah,
there were just situations like that where, all this, the schedule was a little bizarre. Um,
yeah.
so
I
there were
definitely
just things
remember
like
that.
that. Yeah. And I think they did have a couple days with 4 games. So, um, but yeah, no, I'm with you. Look, best women's World Cup ever. I was in France in 2019 for the Women's World Cup, and frankly, the French really did not do a very good job of promoting it. My girlfriend and I went to Reims, a town that's about an hour and a half away, maybe an hour or so from Paris. Um, really pretty little town. They have a Ligue 1 team. If anyone remembers Will Still,
Yep.
the 30-year-old manager, this is the town, Stade de Reims. This is the place that he manages at. So just for the context. And we saw the quarterfinal match, or sorry, round of 16 match between the United States and Spain. And it was funny because we got this Airbnb in town, it's this little apartment, and the guy who rented it out to us, he was like, "So, why is it that you're here? What brings you here?" And we're like, "Oh, well, the Women's World Cup. There's a game here," and he was like, "Really? I didn't know that." And the thing that was crazy is like in the
Right.
train station when you arrived, there wasn't really signage everywhere. It didn't feel like a massive event is coming to town, everybody. Just so you know, more than half of the local population had no idea. And they were looking around going, why are there like hordes of like 12-year-old American girls cruising our streets? Like, what is going on? Because that's the fan base of the US women. You just got like teams of like adolescent girls, huge groups, all rolling into the stadium together, screaming USA, big parade. All the French are like, what is going on? So, I think that was a bummer that France didn't seize the opportunity, but I think that Australia clearly did. Sounds like
Yeah.
everything I've heard, it sounds like the country was completely drawn into the magic of it. They completely supported. I think the
Yeah.
biggest bummer for Australia is that Sam Kerr didn't get to play until the end of the tournament because of injury. I mean, she is box office herself, so her not being able to participate with them from the very beginning is a bummer. It's just unfortunate, but they did a great account of themselves to get to a semifinal almost without her, right?
Yeah. To tackle the promotion aspect of it. When we did our previews, the first we did a preview with our friend Angelica, who is based in Sydney, and she told us that the promotion in Australia, again, soccer isn't big in Australia compared to rugby or Aussie rules football, but the promotion that's been getting has just been sensational. Like there's signs plastered all over the streets of Sydney, and like the train stations, like they say, okay, this is like there's a match happening here, like gridlock, and you could tell from the attendances at a lot of these matches, and she actually got to see some matches that featured Colombia, and I think apart from the Australians, Colombia had, I think, the best fan base at the World Cup. The
Is
way
there just a
Colombians,
massive Colombian diaspora in Australia? Because
I believe
for
there's a
real
good
though, the game against
population.
Germany was, I mean, the pressure cooker atmosphere. I was like, what is, and you could see the fans. I mean, people decked out in huge, wild outfits.
No, literally, like it felt like you were not in Sydney, you were in Bogota.
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm assuming there's a decent population of Colombians in Australia, and you could definitely tell there were some Colombians that made the trip. But still, the fact that those are some of the best crowds, games in which Colombia featured in. The game against England in Sydney, in the larger stadium in Stadium Australia, that had 75,000 people. It maxed out mostly. Colombian supporting fans. I
They just
don't.
went
It
into
was
it.
just. Go
That's
ahead.
so funny. It's just so funny. It's like the Colombians were just going to pull up to every possible game they might play in.
Literally, and if they would have made the final, it would have definitely felt like Barranquilla in that stadium. But yeah, the crowds were just amazing, and the promotion was really, really good. And like even like we're seeing on socials, like there's that one video of everyone watching that Argentina France shootout, and there's just one guy just watching Lord of the Rings, but everyone is watching it. Like it captivated a whole nation. In terms of the Matildas themselves, yeah, despite not having Sam Kerr for a good bulk of the tournament, they were still pretty good. They were definitely. I could definitely imagine there were people asking questions about the team after losing to Nigeria, um, asking, calling for Tony Gustafson's head or whatever the case may be. But they were really good without Sam Kerr. I mean, you just look at some of the names who stepped up, like Ford and Fowler
I like Razzo.
and Steph Catley,
Yep, Steph
her as
Catley as
well.
well.
I think Steph Catley in this interim period that Sam Kerr wasn't available, she took that team under her wing, made it her own in the meantime, and it goes to show you like you can't really build a team around one specific player. You have to have a whole collective. And for Australia, it worked out. Unfortunately, they don't have a medal to show for it, but they do have a proud nation though to show for it. So it would have definitely been great to see her much sooner. But amen.
Well, she got
Regardless of
an
what happened,
amazing moment, right? Scoring the goal against England was incredible.
a banger,
The
absolute
only
banger.
thing that sucks is that like 5 minutes later, she gets an opportunity that we see her score all the time and put it over the
Oh
bar.
yes,
And it was like that was the moment to equalize it 2-2 because England had just taken the lead again. That would have equalized it 2-2. And who knows? At that point, the game can get screwy. Once England got to 3-1, it was obviously over. Okay, how to approach this first? Well, no, let's just continue on this room. We're talking about nice stories, more in generals. We'll kind of we'll reach Spain and England. We'll get to Spain and England, and we'll talk about the final a little bit. But one thing that you mentioned the crowds. I think what was very clear was that Australia has more people to put in stadiums than New Zealand, right? Um, some of the games in New Zealand had
yeah,
pretty low turnouts. It's farther to get to for some places. It's another level of expense for some people to be able to go there. I heard the weather was significantly colder in New Zealand than it was in Australia.
Oh, yeah, there were games where it was just like absolute pouring.
Yeah,
Like I think Spain's first game against I think it was Costa Rica, it was just a downpour.
yeah, I think it was, yeah. But either way, New Zealand, I think benefits as a co-host here, and hopefully, having got a first win at the World Cup for themselves and having had a noble group stage. They finished third in their group, and they beat Norway, who, well, apparently that's not that big of a deal anymore, but it was important for them. And I just think that, yes, Australia and New Zealand really look like they've capitalized on this moment. Australia, obviously, more so for getting to the
Yeah,
semifinal, which I really did not expect them to do. After they lost to Nigeria, I was like, okay, they're gone. But then they beat Canada 4-0. And that I think was really the big moment of the tournament. I think that's when, because they smashed Canada, Olympic gold medalists. That gets
yeah.
them into the round of 16. And then it's like, okay,
As
now
the
it's
group winner.
knockout football. Anything can happen, right? As the group winner. And that I think was really one of the big moments that took them farther. Painfully for me, they beat France on penalties. I'm that was disappointing from the perspective that France, I think, are a team that should have been pushing anyone who was going to win this tournament to the very edge. If they were going to lose, I would have hoped that they'd lose to a team that literally outplayed them. But Australia, they did what they needed to do as hosts to go a long way, and I'm glad for them that they've embraced the moment, because these things are temporary pieces in time if you don't harness the energy gotten from this. The US did that well in 99. I think Japan did pretty well with that when they won the World Cup in 2011. They've been a very strong, they've just produced consistent talent. Speaking of that, Hinata Miyazawa, Golden Boot winner. So really, really, at least good for Japan to get something there.
I think they also won fair play, I think.
Oh, as in no yellow cards, like fewest yellow cards and red cards?
Yeah, I believe if I saw the list of awards correctly, Japan won the fair play. And while I looked that up, in terms of Australia, I agree with what Tony Gustafsson said. He pretty much said along the lines of this, what they've done is not the end of the road, it's more so the beginning. I think Australia, again, they would have to get there first, has a very good case of probably winning gold at next summer's Olympics. I would put them in as a favorite for Olympic gold.
Yeah, I forget. There's some teams that are good that won't be there. Like, I don't think France are going to be there. I don't think they qualified for it.
No, the European qualifiers didn't start yet. The Nations League. There's a women's Nation League coming up now, and they're using that as like a qualifier.
Okay. Well, look, I mean, it's clear that they're going to go somewhere with this. Australia is a country that they have a very sort of, even though it's in Asia essentially.
Yeah, Japan won the fair play.
Okay, Japan did win the fair play. Australia is going to build from this. There's no doubt. I mean, Sam Kerr is the first of, I think, many big time players we're going to see coming from that country in the years to come. So I think this is the announcement that they are around. How about teams that any other teams that impressed you? Look, I thought Haiti were going to get demolished. I was really, really impressed with Haiti being able to not just sort of, they didn't do a Jamaica, right, where they just defended really, really stoutly and well. Like, they did the best they could to attack when they could, and at times looked dangerous. I mean, they almost equalized with England late in that opening match. So I think that was one team that just like took me completely by surprise. I was very impressed with Colombia. Did not think that they would be sort of as complete of a team. And I think I saw quality all over the field. And I wasn't expecting that, especially after hearing about the absolute war that had to be ended early, the closed door friendly with the Republic of Ireland. That I was like, what kind of Colombia team are we about to see at this World Cup? And it was nothing like that. So
I did not get that at all. But yeah, Colombia, like, everyone was looking at Caicedo, and of course, like, she's a baller at just 18, 19, but like, you had your Lacey Santos, you had your Catalina Usmes, who were also pretty good. So, like, it was a total team effort for Colombia. They were just unfortunate in that a couple of defensive errors pretty much put them out of the game against England.
Yep. Yeah.
If their defense that match were a bit more compact, they might be in the semifinal. And who knows what trajectory that would take for Colombia. But even then, like, what I also like is that the fact that some of these nations are receiving like warm welcomes when they come back home. It just goes to show you how far we've come. Like, when Panama, they got back home, and again, they weren't they weren't gonna ever make it that far. But the fact that their group stage game against France ended 6-3, they got three goals on France. Martha Cox,
goal of the tournament,
first ever goal for Panama. Arguably the goal of the tournament.
It's not arguably the goal of the tournament. It is the most unbelievable free kick. I mean, it does not get the credit it deserves because of the game it was in and who scored it, in the sense that it's Panama. It's not late in the tournament. I heard someone saying Sam Kerr's goal versus England is maybe goal of the tournament. Like, you try doing what Martha Cox did. You could take me with a bag of 50 balls out there and a wall in front of me. I am maybe hitting that once, maybe. And like, all right, come on. Yeah, I'm with you. What a story. And that goal is my goal of the tournament. I don't just no competition.
They scored the goal. The bench cleared to celebrate. The bench gets a yellow. I'm like,
3 minutes into the game.
Card,
2 minutes in the game, something like that.
Like, they led France for like a good 10, 15 minutes after that. I'm like, that if you're gonna get a yellow card for anything, yes, I approve of that yellow card. But no, like, even again, they ended up losing 6-3. They weren't ever gonna make it out of the group, I didn't think. But still, even though, like, all right, you scored 3 goals. One of them was an absolute banger. When they went back to Panama, there were people lining up in the airport just waiting to see the national team, the Canaleras, come back in Panama City. They had a nice reception. Colombia, they had a nice reception as well. They had like a city plaza in Bogota. And there were a lot of people who went to that. The Philippines, I think I saw photos of them going back home and them getting praise as well. So, and then I did see Australia. They had like a little, they had a ceremony in Brisbane on the day of the final. So, hey man, the growth is just amazing. I can't get over that. It's just amazing to see how much this game has grown. And it's never gonna be like the men's game, I don't think. In that, okay, like there's gonna be people who make those like comparisons and stuff. Why do we have to compare? I think.
Yeah, not useful. I mean,
I'm at the point
it's
where,
the
like,
biggest
why?
women's sport. Tell me one women's sport that is as big in terms of played throughout the world, opportunities for people from really everywhere. Like, I know that a sport like tennis, for instance, is big, but like, how many really, really good players, not even really, really good, but how many players do you see from vast different parts of the world in tennis, right? We've had Arab teams at this World Cup. We had Morocco, and advancing as well.
Can we talk about Morocco? That's another incredible story.
Yeah, great story. I mean, especially for the country in the space of 6 months, from a footballing perspective, right? The men making it to the semifinal, first African nation to do so on the men's side, best finish for Morocco ever, of course. And then for the women, yeah, getting out of the group in quite a wild fashion too. I mean, they lose 6-0 to Germany on their opening match, and it looks like it's going to be a hopeless World Cup. But then they turned it around. I mean, yeah, went through at Germany's expense. It's just crazy.
Hey man, Morocco is seeing a football boom right now, men and women.
Yeah, like, so I know, what the king has apparently really put a lot of money into making sure that everything is. This is why monarchies are kind of interesting. Is because you get one of these kings that's like a, really forward-thinking person who wants to invest in all the good stuff, right? And here he is. He's like, I've decided women's football is important. We're going to do it, and like, this is great result. It's a great thing to see.
No, it absolutely is. They hosted AFCON last year. And some of the venues were packed. And of course, whenever Morocco played, it was also packed. And they were the furthest African team to make it in the knock. Well, there were 3 African teams in the knockout stage. They were the only debutant to make it into the knockout.
That's right. Yeah. That's what it was.
That's what I was thinking about. But again, just that stat alone, like, okay, we have a debutant in the knockout stage. We had 3 African teams in the knockout stage. And the sport is definitely growing in Africa, I think, faster than, say, Latin America. Like, yeah, Costa Rica's in the World Cup, and that's great and all, but the fact that Nigeria, South Africa, and Morocco were all in the knockout stage. Meanwhile, over here, like,
Brazil and Argentina were not. I think that is the big point of contention. Panama, Jamaica, Costa Rica, small populations, do what you can. Argentina and Brazil. And actually, this is great. This brings me on to the segues to the next thing I want to know. What are your biggest disappointments? And for me, Argentina, Brazil definitely is one of them as a combined package. Brazil, phenomenal looking in their match against Panama. Then they have that difficult match where they played well, lose 2-1 to France, can't score against Jamaica, and they're out. Okay. Unfortunate. I think Jamaica were a little lucky to get out of the group the way they went about things. Valiant, but definitely not all that progressive. I mean, they only scored 1 goal the whole tournament. But Argentina are another one. It's like, why aren't they better, right? And I think that is disappointing, especially when you look at a team like, I thought South Africa. Oh, things had worked just a little bit differently in their match against the Netherlands. They easily could have been level at
Quarterfinals, yeah.
halftime, possibly ahead. I mean, they were really giving it to the Dutch in the first half. And I just am not seeing that same improvement from Brazil and Argentina. My other major disappointment is Norway. I cannot believe how what is going on. I don't get it. I'm done calling them a dark horse for anything forever until they prove me otherwise. Because this is they have
At
made me
least they
look like
didn't
a
get
complete
smoked
mug 2
by
tournaments
England.
in a row.
At least they didn't get smoked by England. Norway, I'm not even considering them. Like you said, like I didn't think they would make it out the group. I genuinely did not think they would make it out the group. And we were making a good case of why the Philippines would make it out ahead of them. But yeah, that's obviously a disappointment. But I wouldn't rate that as like my biggest disappointment. CONMEBOL being disappointing this World Cup is definitely cause for some concern in South America. Um, no, again, nothing against Colombia, but no one expected them to be the flag bearers of the region.
No, yeah, no.
Brazil, I don't know what the issue with Brazil was, to be honest with you. They have talent. I don't know, like they just couldn't gel together. Did Pia Sundaga, lose a step? I don't know what the case is. Argentina, they're just like trying to like develop their women's program a lot more. Cause I remember, but at the same, I remember opening match World Cup '07, 11-0 defeat to Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Safe to say that Argentina is not at that stage anymore,
True.
but there's still a lot to do in these Latin American countries, and it just has to do with like the investment, has to do with like getting players developed. Um, Argentina is another team that relies on some American players, and like uh, we're talking about goals of the tournament. Sophie Braun against South Africa had an amazing goal.
Oh, her goal. Yeah, one of the best of the group stage.
And she I think plays at or played at Gonzaga or at some college in the West Coast. But yes, I think they need to like do some more developing, do a lot more recruiting. I think that's one thing that the Philippines were really good at.
But surely Argentina doesn't need to recruit. I mean, come on. This is the country of Messi, Maradona,
True,
and countless on the men's side. The
but
game is deeply part of the culture there, more than in a lot like
re-
where women go to, Argentine league games. Like you see families in the crowd, the women are all there. When I was in Russia
who
for the
goes?
World
Sorry to cut
Cup,
you off.
there were more women who were Argentinian there than any other nationality. So like they
But
love their football.
who goes to the women's matches though?
Well, I'm not saying this. I'm just saying that you would think that with the passion that they have, that enough
Oh no, yes.
grassroots football is going on and with the population, that those things combined would create at least a solid batch of players. Why is it that Portugal, for instance, looks so much further along than Argentina? That doesn't make sense to me.
Development. I think Portugal is like their development in the women's game is a lot better than that of Argentina. Again, Portugal could have been the other debutante to make it into the knockout stage had
Yep.
it not been for the goalpost against the U.S. Um, but yeah, it's something that I feel like they are going to work on. I mean, they just have to. Like some countries still need to do the catch up. South America, I think, and Latin America as a whole still have to do the catching up. Um, I still think Panama and Jamaica, like we spoke about in the previews, that could be a nice little rivalry in the future.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right. Yeah, little CONCACAF rivalry.
what else was disappointing to me? CONCACAF, you can say CONCACAF as well, but Jamaica had a good tournament, making it all the way to the knockouts. Uh, Canada was very disappointing.
Yep. Yeah, agreed.
Canada were just I don't know, bad. The US, bad. Um, well, other disappointments. Germany, of course.
I mean, there weren't too
But
many.
like,
That's, I think, one
but
of the nice things about the tournament. There was a lot of things that were good, but you know,
and the things that we would consider disappointments, like again, the U.S. and Germany, I think in the long run, in the long haul, is good for the sport.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, it was nice
Let,
to see a new winner, for instance, and in the semifinal, you knew that there would be a new winner. Um,
right,
that was really cool.
Sweden. Um, so we have this running joke with Belgium, how they're the third place kings. Whatever tournament they're in, they find their way in third place in something. The women's equivalent is definitely Sweden. It just is.
Yeah, different playing style though, right? Obviously, a different like identity in the way they go. I mean, I was trying to think if there is a men's
Similar end
equivalent,
result.
it's sort of an equivalent in the way they played. Sweden, I gotta hand it to them. I gotta say, uh, I I am glad they went out in the semifinals, I think we've said that off air, because I didn't want to see a team that that scored most of its goals from set pieces and was stout defensively, but also kind of lucky to get through more than one knockout match. I think it's fine if you get through one knockout match with a little bit of luck and there's some sliding doors moments where you could have gone out, but I don't want to see the winner of the competition have like 2 or 3 straight games where you're like, really? How the hell did they manage to win that? And then they go deep, which is why I think Australia also going out in the semifinal made sense. Like getting past France was a massive achievement for them. Beating England in a similar way would have been, I think it was good that we also got the best 2 teams in the tournament in the final. There were a lot of great stories from debutantes, great stories from nations that are starting to emerge. I agree with you. There really aren't that many negative stories, and most of the things that may be considered negative for a country or two probably worked out in the grand scheme for everyone else. I I guess it's an easy moment to kind of move on to the U.S. You said earlier that people said that they're immune from criticism, and you said that's hilarious. Um,
Yes,
I have to
because
say,
freaking
go ahead, explain what you mean by that.
I hate. Oh my god, Carly Lloyd said what she said.
Yeah. Which
She
was,
said
by
what
the
she
way, not
said.
just to give context here to anyone listening. Carly Lloyd, what she basically said was after the match against Portugal, where they just scraped through, she was like basically saying that the dancing, the joking, the smiling and laughing on the field, like is not measured for the moment. Like you almost just got knocked out. Like you do not look focused and serious enough. That was basically the gist of what she said. And that basically the way they were playing was just not good enough. That's essentially what she said. She didn't say anything about any individuals, didn't name names, just kind of was like, I don't think that's the way you should really carry yourself. Coming from Carly Lloyd, that makes all the sense in the world because that is her personality. Um, I think it's fine. But it was interesting. The backlash she got was just totally ridiculous. But this team is a lightning rod. And I guess here's what I would also put your way is this was probably the most hate watched team at the World Cup, where there were so many people, not necessarily watching the games, but waiting for the US to slip up so that they could really dogpile on it. And most of these people, I think, are people who do not care one single bit about the sport as it is anyway.
Oh no! I don't really care for the
So I
people
think it's
who
very
say that.
interesting overall. And I do think that the criticism was more than warranted this time around.
Yeah, I don't think the U.S. like I don't think Megan Rapinoe missed a penalty because she supports whoever she wants to support.
Yeah.
I don't really buy into that argument. Um, a lot of people definitely did, and Carly Lloyd says what she says. I don't think she was wrong in her criticism. Any other country where they criticize a team in the way that she did wouldn't have people like on her ass like, no, I think you're being too harsh, or oh, a lot of the players played in their first World Cup. We can't really criticize them as we would a team with experience, except for the fact that the players on this national team took part in a commercial that said USA versus the world. Like, yeah,
The
it's the meat
commercial is a bad look now, isn't it?
aged like milk. It's like, yeah, you could blame the media, but they were in on it. They were in on it. It's not like Fox set this independently and like took highlights and shit. They were in on it. Freaking, and then what Lynette Berenstein said, oh, like I'm happy they got knocked out because it kind of brought them off a high horse, to paraphrase. And people got mad at her for that. Like
Well,
that's why
she
you
spoke
got
too
knocked out.
early as
And
well.
she spoke too early as well. But taking away that from the equation, what did she say that was wrong? Nothing.
Nothing. Nothing.
But I think like just those moments, just like the thought that we're above criticism, we don't need criticism, is like American exceptionalism personified.
Well, and I think it's interesting for people to feel this way because that doesn't exist on the men's side. The American exceptionalism does not exist on the men's side in the men's game. What does exist is this like this year we are Rocky. Like we are going to defeat Drago. Every World Cup, we're going to do it. It's the American story's on. We're the ones that, it's our time. It's it's at least a fun thing on the men's side in a way. It's a little bit ridiculous at times and naive sounding, but at least
2026
there's a measured understanding that like we are not the favorites to win the World Cup, right? Whereas on the women's side, there's plenty of it to have a sort of superiority complex. And I think that that's normal, right? Talk to Brazilians about the way they feel about their men's team. A lot of them just like, it's not even so much that it's just that there is this belief that like they should always be in the semifinal or the final just because they're just better than everybody else. And they should always be there, whether they win or lose, God willing football. I've heard many Brazilians say this, and sometimes you are, sometimes you're not, right? And I think this is one of those years where the US, their cycle, they aren't one of the best teams, right? They just aren't right now. And I don't think that's that big of a deal.
I mean, I think it's funny you mention that because I think the comparison between the U.S. and Brazil, the USA women and Brazil men, is like the most apt. The two most successful teams in each gender. Again, I'm not in on the comparison bit, but let's just make that comparison. If the Brazilian men played anything like the USA women did in the group stage, they would be getting crucified.
Oh God, it would be terrible. Yeah.
And no one would be coming to the players' aids like, oh, you're just bitter. Let's say Ronaldinho or Ronaldo. I think Ronaldo's on TV more. Let's say Ronaldo Nazario made those same Carly Lloyd critiques. No one would be like, oh, Ronaldo is bitter. Oh, Ronaldo is desperate to see the U.S., desperate to see Brazil lose. Like, you wouldn't see that. You see that here, however.
So here's a question then. Would you say that maybe part of the reason why is because this U.S. women's national team, look, they're more than just a football team. Like they represent a lot more than just a sports team, right?
Fair.
And in that sense, what surrounds them, the narratives surrounding them are also bigger, right? When the US men play in the Gold Cup and it's a C team and they lose, I mean, they got pulled apart. There was a lot of criticism about the way the US went out of a Gold Cup with a third team.
Yeah,
and I thought it was really interesting. and also the reaction to the U.S. Performance in Qatar, I thought was pretty harsh in a lot of ways at times. I was like, I thought they did fine. I don't think they did anything under expectations. They didn't overperform. Okay, whoop-de-doo. But on the women's side, there's just more. I think there's more that a lot of fans of this team gravitate to with regards to the players. They love some of these players, and I mean love them. Like these players are not just like great players that people look up to. They're regarded as icons on a human level for so many of the fans.
That's fair.
That the way that you talk about them is different than a sports person almost. You know what I mean? It's like Megan Rapinoe and some of the players who are like, I mean, Alex Morgan, basically it's like Taylor Swift. She's got this like band of girls of so many ages that are just ride or die Alex Morgan. And
That's very much true. I saw it in person.
It's not just about her soccer playing. She's this larger than life personality and presence that they really like, an icon. And so I think it's very interesting. The U.S. women's team, for instance, the U.S. men's team go out of the World Cup, and I heard a peep from the mainstream media. The U.S. women's team go out of the World Cup, and like half the YouTube channels on the planet are taking their shot, right? Like, I mean, I saw early in the World Cup, there were people complaining about how the U.S. women were not all standing with their hands on their hearts, singing the national anthem. My reaction was, you don't watch international football, because if you did, you would know that this is normal among every team except Italy. Italy's the only one where every single dude is just screaming the national anthem. Every other country has some that are quiet, some that just stand there, some that sing. But people made a huge deal about this. So you have a lot of right-wing people going absolutely nuts about it. Then they go, woke U.S. team loses the World Cup. You're like, you're thinking of one person in your mind. It's like you're thinking of Megan Rapinoe, and now you're assigning 23 players to what you consider a political ideology. It's like the U.S. men's team is not under this strange, bizarre, cultural, divisive microscope like the women's team is. And I think that's a weird place for the program to be.
You're right. I honestly, with all due respect to what they do off the field, like whatever human right they want to fight for, I don't care in the sense that I am based when I'm judging the team. I'm not judging the team because someone took a knee for the anthem once upon a time. I'm not judging the team because they believe they deserve to be paid more than the men or equal to the men. In my bed, I'm good. Like I look at a team, and if I think you suck because your ass couldn't beat the Netherlands. You barely scraped by against Portugal, not because you donated however much money to Planned Parenthood or you support Colin Kaepernick. I couldn't care less about that when we're talking about the team on the field. You could do all that. I don't care. But it's like, and I said this when on one of our lives. It's like people coming at Marcus Rashford for donating food to kids. Like,
yeah, they're like people were saying he's going to be distracted from on. What?
Exactly, and that's why England lost the Euro. Like, respect. I hate that argument. It gets so annoying. I
guess my point is that it's very interesting that the U.S. women's team has these kind of things following them around. I think it was kind of a perfect storm of events, things in time. You know, there's just a lot of things that happened in the last 5-6 years that have kept this kind of dragging on to the point where it becomes a lot of the issues that people know and talk about become contentious. And then all of a sudden, like you said, you've got people hating a team because of one player who took a knee, who took a knee during the national anthem. Like, I mean, that is, and assigning the whole rest of the team and the whole rest of the program and basically women's soccer in the U.S. in general to be, this whatever thing people decide it is. And like you said, and I'm like you, I do not care about any of that other stuff. I understand how big of a cultural deal they are. I do
Right.
think it was
It
good
has
though to
nothing
see
to do with
Carly
that.
Lloyd say what she said though, because there were a ton of people who were completely 100% on board. Look, I know Alexi Lawless gets a lot of shit for being Mr. Hot Take,
Shit.
but
Oh, same thing.
and I actually do think that in live, on the broadcast, halftime, post game, I think he's just a little too much for me. But I did watch his State of the Union podcast daily during the World Cup, and he's just hanging out with his buddy David Mossy, and they're chatting. And you know what I really appreciate about Alexi Lawless? He's freaking honest and has absolutely no problems saying, yeah, that was a horrific defensive error by this player, and it says her name, and like, because I saw a lot of people handle mistakes or things that went wrong with kids' gloves, the way they just sort of talked about it. And I'm not saying that we need
They
to
were
be
being coddled.
overly critical to the women. I don't think it's, but I also don't think it's unfair to say, wow, what on earth kind of decision was that? What, like, this is terrible technically. Like, and I think people got a dose of
No,
that this time.
exactly. Exactly. And get used to it, because if women's football is on the pace it is right now, US might not be lifting another World Cup anytime soon. They could low key be on the same trajectory as Norway. Not in the terms of getting washed, but like in terms of, okay, maybe we might not win a World Cup in the future. In the next World Cup, we may not win it, or the next Olympics, we might finish bronze or something. And like U.S. hasn't won an Olympic gold medal since London. That's a
Yep.
whole 13 years ago. I mean, that's a whole 11 years ago. My bad, 11 years ago. So like, yeah, like I feel like we're at that point now. Uh, Again, and I think the team has a lot to look forward to. I do think Sophia Smith, Trinity Rodman, Naomi Girma, this is going to be their team now.
Yeah, I agree.
Savannah DeMello, throw her in there as well. Um, but in terms of the criticism, like, she was not wrong at all. She was not wrong at all. Like, just, and this is another reason why the U.S. isn't really a soccer country, because of how the criticism was criticized. It's just like Manchester United got cooked by Spurs, and everyone's picking Manchester United. No one's like, it was the referee though. Even though Bruno said something like, "Oh, I want the referee to apologize to me." Oh, Mason Mount, it's only his second match at the club. Like, should really be easy on him. No, they're coming for your neck, rightfully so. And the suck part is that the U.S. had a good game against Sweden, but it was too little, too late.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been weird to see them if they had advanced past that game. You could totally see how they would have figured out a way to cobble together just like game after game, survive, advance, and win the whole thing. So I was happy to see them go out for the sole reason that I wanted to see the future of women's football.
Yes,
I was not hate watching the US women. I did not want a previous winner to win. I love Japan. I loved what they were doing. I was like, cool, but I hope you fall at some point.
they
When
would have been the
Germany went
only
out,
previous winner. They would have been the, sorry to cut you off. Japan would have been the only previous winner I would have wanted to see win. And the way Japan started the tournament, it looked like it.
it did. It really did. And then for them to go out, against Sweden in a weird game where I thought that was Sweden's best game. Yeah, you have four teams in the semifinal. It's like, okay, new winner. The final, I think, is exactly what a lot of people with power rankings and brackets done at the very beginning of the tournament. Because I'd say a fair percentage of people would have picked these two teams to end up in this spot. So we haven't talked at all about the actual match. I don't think there's a whole lot to say about it, except
Before we get to that,
yeah, go for it.
I want to put a pin on the USA point, right?
Yeah, go for it.
I honestly wasn't. I didn't know what was gonna happen. I thought Alana Cook, right? She would dig up her family would dig up some dirt on Vlatko Andonovsky and deliver that dirt to Kate Markgraf, and then an investigation would be launched, and then Vlatko would have to step aside, and then let's say December comes, the U.S. announces Vlatko Andonovsky's hire. I was really thinking that might happen. Because
Well,
it's the
if Matt
same United
Crocker's
States Soccer
involved,
Federation.
yeah, if Matt Crocker's involved, I can totally see that they do that, right?
Hey man, Kate Markgraf had the same position as Ernie Stewart on the men's side. So like, okay, like I'm thinking, okay, maybe all this because Alana Cook didn't get playing time for shit.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I legit thought they would, keep the status quo with Vladko, but hey man, it is what it is.
Well, actually, I guess before we do move on to the final, one last thing about the U.S. I think
They're not getting
with
Savina Vrigman. They are not.
no, I don't know. I don't even want to get into that conversation. I think that's annoying. It's an annoying conversation. It's so like, oh, like it's the most. It's like, oh, well, who's the best manager? And they go, it's either the woman who's got a really good stock with England, or it's the guy who apparently half the team hates, but he seems to be a pretty good coach. It can't be him. It's got to be her. There's no one else. It's in my opinion, it's Emma Hayes. That's if I'm the U.S. Soccer, I go, look, Emma Hayes, you've been at Chelsea for a long time. You've won literally everything there is to win except the Champions League. You're going to be in a rebuilding phase because the team you built over the last 5-7 years is turning over. New players are coming in. Emma Hayes used to coach in the U.S. She's been here. She went to college here. I mean, I think that if the U.S. are serious, that to me is the most obvious candidate
I
of someone
love
who
that
is
shout.
like top level coach, proven for years and years and years on end. But I don't know. I'm not really worried about the U.S. women's coaching hire. I think that these are things that I could also go for someone who I've never heard of, who just has a great reputation. Like I don't think international managers need to be these massive names. I just think they need to have the right personality, know how to build a culture, and know how to be the ones in charge, and that the players understand sort of like what is required of them. That's all that's needed. With the US though, I kind of wonder, is like Vlatko Ananovsky, I think, was the wrong hire. And I don't think he was the wrong hire in the sense that he was a bad coach, but I think him taking over the team at that time, anyone taking over the team at that time would have struggled. But he was never going to be able to just phase out all the old players and be like, I'm starting something new. Bye. Like we just won a World Cup. There was no way he could turn it over. And I think USSF really didn't think through like what it would mean with that. Like you needed someone strong who
Can
was like,
I?
I don't care about my reputation in a way. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I'll disagree with you slightly
Okay.
because while most of what you said is true, they could have started doing that phase out at the Olympics.
Yeah, they probably
It
should
was
have
a
done it
disappointing
before the
Olympic
Olympics because
run.
the Olympics are limited squad. You have 18 players only. That was a great moment to not bring back Carly Lloyd, Megan Rapinoe, like right, a few of those. But Alex Morgan, I think was harder to get rid of because she's not yet like as old. But
Right.
yes,
So
it
I
could have
feel like
started then.
at
But
that Olympic run, you could have started then. But again, it was going to be hard to get rid of like a lot of the players who were on that U.S. women's national team side. So I agree with you in that sense. But also, he could have had a chance to begin that phase out. But I don't know. And then you bring in a lot of incoming players like who haven't had ticks for anything. The one player everyone mentioned was Savannah DeMello. Not that she's a bad player or anything; she's really good, but she doesn't really have a feel for the national team. Her
no,
first cap came against Wales in the pre-World Cup in the send-off match, and then she started the opening match. Like I wouldn't have done that. Savannah DeMello is someone you should have integrated into the program after the Olympics.
yeah, Sofia Huerta didn't play at all. I don't think we saw Ashley Sanchez. Like strange. So I just wonder if he had a real handle on what he wanted his team to look like from the very, very beginning. And I think that they're going to need someone to come in and, again, like I said, I don't really care who, but they're going to need someone to come in, and it's going to need to be someone who can be the obvious leader of the team, right? Not just someone who's organizing this amazing batch of icons to try and help them, tee them up so that they can go out there and do their thing. He never felt like he was really in charge. And I think they need someone who feels like they're in charge, which is part of why I
Absolutely
said
get the
Emma Hayes.
ground running. Emma Hayes would definitely be one to do that. I like that shout. I do not think Serena Vigman will leave. Not only for the fact that she says so herself, nor would I think former U.S. assistant Tony Gustafsson would either.
Well, time for Julie Foudy to put her money where her mouth is. Come on, Julie. Let's see what you got. All right. So three players who received individual awards at this Women's World Cup. Salma Parayuelo, fantastic name that
Oh
I've
my
heard
God.
so many people struggle to pronounce. It's been amazing to hear some
Parayuelo.
podcasts and shows just literally add J's and H's and different things in it. It's great. Young player of the tournament. Oh yeah, Parallelo, and then it just goes off a cliff. It's so great. So she wins young player of the tournament. I don't think there's much of an argument for this because all the young players who did well for a game or two, or had a big moment in a game or two, and didn't go far enough in the competition necessarily to warrant this award. I don't think anyone for England would really get this aside from Lauren James, and she really only had a good group stage before getting sent off against Nigeria.
Yeah, that red card, sorry to cut you off, that red card fucked her up.
Yeah.
I think that doesn't happen, she would probably be starting the rest of the way, and she may have a legit case for young player, but I think that red card
could have even won Golden Boot, you know, I mean, the way she was going.
That as well. I think that red card slowed things down for her, unfortunately. It's gonna be something she learns from, but that might have been I think proved to be costly.
But Parayuelo, you think worthy winner of the best player of the tournament, you'd say?
Oh, best young player, yes.
Yeah, best young player of the tournament.
Best, yes. No argument there. She amazing. Her story as well is amazing. The fact that she's a runner, she's a track star, and she's also a Champions League winner. She's won all 3 World Cups: the U20, the U17, and the senior team.
In the last 12 months, is that right? As well.
I believe the U17 came a while ago, but the U20, yes, the U20 was last summer.
Oh yeah, because she's not. I thought she was. Is she 18? Isn't she 18?
19.
Oh, she's 19. Okay, so that had to be 2 years ago. The under 17s. Okay.
Yes. But still, like, Champions League winner, Spanish League winner. She essentially completed women's football, and she just needs the Olympics and the Euro. But she's only 19. Her stock is going to rise so high. Definitely warrants the best young player of the tournament. Aitana Bonmatí definitely warrants the best player of the tournament. And I would go as far as to say she should win the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah, look, I think that it's great for her that I think that victory over, there was a 4-1 win. Who'd they beat? It was
had to have been
game. What was it? I'm forgetting. That's right. Yeah, and they had the hilarious own goal. She had 2 goals in that game, scored in the opener, and I think just overall showed just the level of class that she has. What I thought was interesting is as we were going into this final game, I was like thinking about who would really be, like, last night before it started, I was like, who would I nominate as my player of the tournament? And it was very difficult because it felt as if there was no player who showed up literally in every game and was very good minimum in every single game. Because remember, Spain got smashed by Japan in a game where, not that they were terrible, but things didn't work for them. You couldn't really look for any of their players as standouts in that match. Then
that match against Japan was like, okay, are they gonna win this World Cup, or is their journey gonna end here? Like, that Japan game, everyone was like, myself included, okay, Spain just got exposed. They probably might not go as far anymore. But to your point, like, okay, that was a blip. But Bonmatí, for the most part, has been Spain's best player, has been their most consistent player. I would put Hermoso right there with her. But Bonmatí, I think she's been, without question, their best player.
So a player who threw her name into the hat late in this whole thing is Olga Carmona, who, by the way, I just read a few minutes, like a little bit ago, that she found out her father passed away just like, I'm talking not long, maybe an hour, maybe a couple hours, maybe a little less. Found her father passed away right after the World Cup final. So for her to get the winner, not just in the semifinal, which was an absolute bomb, maybe savable, but still an absolute bomb. And then for her to score such a good goal in the final. I really am a big fan of Olga Carmona. I think second best left back in the women's game behind Sakina Karchaoui of France. But what a player. I thought the goal was excellent. And I think she could have deserved a shout for player of the tournament as well in the end, because she was a crucial part of Spain's everything. She was a crucial part of their attack.
You're
She got
right.
involved. She was very important defensively. I just think that it was, you go into the final match and you're like, could it be, maybe it's going to be like, who from England would you give it to? I wouldn't have said Alessia Russo. Maybe Lauren Hemp,
I would
right?
have said
Probably would have
Russo.
won. Probably
I
would
would
have
have
won
said
if they won the World Cup, because Hemp had a
I
big impact.
I would have given it. I would have considered Russo or him. If it were England, I would have also considered. I would have probably considered either Millie Bright or Lucy Bronze. I would even go as far as to say Mary Earps.
Absolutely. So gold won the Golden Glove. I think that's a tough one to really argue as well, given that
Yes.
England had a very good defensive record all the way through the tournament. She's a goalkeeper you notice, because she just has a personality about her. I know that for you, I think if the Dutch had made it to the semifinal, you probably would have said Daphne van Domselaar, because she was very good again. And I know you were a big fan of her performance at the Euros when she kind of came on totally unknown.
As goalkeeper, yes. If it wasn't, I think Mary Earps best Gold Glove. I'm not mad at that. Uh, we're actually in the middle of trying to come up with our first team, second team for this World Cup, and Musovic, she had an amazing game against the U.S. and she had amazing saves in this knockout stage. But Earps would be my first, and Mackenzie Arnold would be my second.
I agree. I completely agree. Has to be Mackenzie Arnold.
Mackenzie Arnold in games where Australia have won, she has been a force. She's been a brick wall. I've just been fascinated by her play. And sidebar, and this not just applies for the women's game, but this is generally speaking. Make goalkeeper jerseys available, please. Thanks.
Yep, I remember reading about that before the World Cup. They did not make her jersey available, which is ridiculous. I mean, that thing would sell.
But you don't see that available for any men's team either.
It's the same thing, isn't it?
I would have gotten an Emmy Martinez jersey or Yassine Bono jersey, but now I'm not mad at people wanting a Mary Erbser and Mackenzie Arnold jersey. Like, make them shits available.
100%. That's ridiculous. That's just ridiculous that they're not. That makes no sense whatsoever.
It doesn't even have a name on the back, just a goalkeeper jersey.
Yeah, some of the goalkeeper jerseys are great. They used to be hilarious. I think that people have forgotten that now they are like the normal jerseys. They're not these giant things with the elbow pads like you saw in the 90s. They'd be something that you can actually wear out. I mean, his were awesome. I mean, they're just the most insane. They're so cool. Like, if I had one Jorge Campos jersey, I would consider that like that'd be a big get. But so look, Aitana Bonmati, in my opinion, my favorite player in the women's game to watch. Absolutely love watching her play. Very, very pleased for her that she got there, won it. England, I think, can be very proud. Serena Vigman, I took some time looking this up. If you wanted to fact check me on this and look, I would love to find out if this is right. I believe she is the only international manager to make it to 4 consecutive major tournament finals, to all 4 that are available. So the Euros, then the World Cup with the Netherlands. She won the Euros, made it to the World Cup final with the Netherlands, won the Euros with England, made it to the World Cup final with them. I looked up previous on the men's side, all this. I never found one coach who made it to 4 finals back to back. So if that's actually the case, Serena Vigman, excellent work. England, I think probably the most efficient team. Played very German-like. They just knew how to win games and get through and do what they needed to, and always seem in control. But the winners, Spain, and I love it because it's my favorite team to watch. I think it's the highest level of technical quality we've seen from a women's team. And I think the bar has officially been raised. So that's really great. Cool to see that Spain officially raises the bar, both the men's and the women's teams. When they win a World Cup, pretty much everyone takes notice and goes, that star means something. So now the women's team gets a star as well. As you were pointing at your jersey, the women's team gets one. The women's English team is still sitting without one, unfortunately. So let's talk about this. Jorge Vilda, pantomime villain or what? Like, what the guy wins the World Cup having,
What'd you just
withstood
call him?
Jorge Vilda, the coach.
Yeah, what'd you call him?
It's Jorge,
I
the
know. What did you
pantomime
call him just
villain.
now? Oh.
He's like this guy who's like,
Oh
he's kind of
man.
like, he kind of looks, there's something funny about his look on the sideline. He's like, there's something slightly villainous about him that also I don't really think, but the way that the commentators all spoke about him throughout the tournament, it was like, no one really likes this guy. But I didn't see that from Spain. I thought I saw a pretty together group, and they go in their World Cup champions.
Yes.
And so, yeah, what did you think of Spain taking it? You've got the jersey. You're stoked about this. So, I mean, I am too, but
I'm
I
only
think it's
stoked
great.
about this. I'm only stoked about this because of the fact that it's Spain. Like I was definitely a lot more over the moon when Argentina won it. Not to say that I'm not now. I'm very happy that Spain won it. Like I said, I have a rooting interest now. Um, Two things could be true. Jorge Vilda could be a manager who, for the most part, especially in the knockout stage, played his tactics right. I think bring Paruelo on in like late stages of games where some of these teams might just be out of gas to like really put the nail in the coffin was good. Was a good move tactically. I think he could also be scum. So two things can be true. You have to give him some credit for that, for his technical awareness, but you can also recognize that he's, from what we've been hearing, a piece of shit. So that's why I'm in a rock and a hard place. I know a lot of people supported England because of Jorge Vilda, and the Spanish team were good. You could say he was good in spite of him. That's fair to say, but he has to have some credit. I'm not giving him the whole shebang. Some credit, and that I think might, for some people, might be divisive. But I think it's accurate. He has to get some type of credit. But in large parts, this team is just really good and very talented. We already spoke about Bomanti. I thought Hermoso was the second best player for Spain, or as good as Bomanti was. Paruelo, do we have to say more about her? Alexia Putellas, she wasn't really at her
He wasn't
100%
ready.
best.
She wasn't
She
ready
she
physically.
might right. She probably wasn't ready physically. She got the start in the uh semifinal.
Yep. Just
Came off
didn't
the
look
bench
up
in
to
the
pace.
final. She did it, and then that's why taking her off for Salma, I think, was a good move tactically. But if we had a 100% fully fit Alexia, same thing. Uh, Redondo was really good. Carmona really found herself in the knockout stage. So yeah, that's my stance on this. Bilda, give him some credit. It's okay not to give him the entire credit because again, the players on the field did the job. So yeah,
So I
Bilda.
would argue that for anyone that hate watched Spain, or hate watched Jorge Vilda in specifically, they said, I want this team to not win because you don't want them to win with apparently the asshole in charge, right? And look, I have to be honest with you, I've not gone and read a whole lot about this whole scenario. Um, like we said, Luis Rubiales, the president of the Spanish FA, when he got the complaints from the players, the letter saying, "Hey, 15 of us don't want to go," he was like, "Yeah, no, that's not happening. I don't know who you think you are. You are absolutely out of your station right now. You're going to apologize, or you're not going to be playing." Now, 15 players signing a list, that's pretty damning. But also at the same time, there's a part of you that goes, well, you know, good on the federation for at least sticking up for the person they've put in charge as coach instead of just folding to player pressure. I think France needed to fold to player pressure because it was clear Corinne Diacre was toxic. But I watched Spain at the Euros, and I did not see a toxic looking team. I don't think you win the World Cup with a completely toxic environment. I watched them celebrate games, goals. I bet you there are some players who actually really are fine with his methods, whatever those are. I don't even know what methods were the complaint at this point. There's so little information that I have been able to find and see in terms of details about all this. My big point here is the best thing that could have happened for Spain was that they win this, because now the demands for where it can all go are going to be higher. Players are going to say, look, we don't want a coach who is basically just, I think Vilda is you know, close to Rubiales in some way, like either the families know each other, something like that. This is a little bit of a sweetheart appointment. This is not, you've worked your way up and earned this. So my hope is that with Spain going, look, we're world champions now. We need to do this legit. We need to make sure that we bring the best team we can to every competition. We don't want disputes going on before then. We need to make sure that we've got a manager that not only has the belief of the federation, but the belief of the players and also the people, right? When you hire a national team manager, you're taking the pulse on how this person's going to be accepted by, the country, because it does matter in a way that doesn't for the club game. So I think this is huge for Spain. Love it or hate Vilda. I think for the players and for the future of the game on the women's side in Spain, this is nothing but a victory. Don't hate on the
I
person.
just
Don't hate
hope
on
that
someone who's involved in it. Love the fact that so many other people are going to win. So many women,
exactly.
girls are going to win because of this victory. They're like, doors are about to fly open, right? And you can hate on Vilda if
I
you want,
hope
but more people are going to win because of this. That's just my point.
yes for the team. Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. The only thing like not necessarily concerned about, but like I would keep an eye on is if the FA can stunts the growth. Like you won the World Cup now. You have a leg to stand on. When you make arguments, when you make your pitches to the FA, no longer you shouldn't be at the point where in the Copa de la Reina final, instead of giving out the trophies, not the trophies, putting the medals around the players' necks, you just leave it there because you have a dispute with the players. I think we should be above that. I hope Rubiales is above that. He himself could be scum. But for what this can do to Spanish footy, yes, it opens doors. You know me, I watch the broadcasts in Spanish. So they had Natalia Astarin, who's a former U17 US coach, and she's of Spanish descent. She just broke down everything this result could mean and would mean for the sport in Spain. Okay, we've opened doors now. We've like people are in. They're putting their money on the women's national team. I hope it continues. I think it will. Uh the Villa situation, yeah, it sucks. And I get the position of some of the players who were, a part of the their what lack of a better term hit list
Yeah. Yeah.
that decided to come back to the national team because it's bigger than just one man. It's for the nation.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it perfectly. It's that's the bigger point here. It's not just him. It's not Jorge Vilda winning the World Cup. It's the Spanish winning the World Cup. It's growing the game in Spain. It's it's tough, but It can only go up. It can only go up. Sorry if I'm rambling, but like it's just a lot to take in.
Well, I think, and this is the thing, is that I think there are a lot of unanswered questions. We don't really think about how the game will grow somewhere or another when a men's team wins the World Cup. After Argentina won, everyone was like, about time. No one was like, imagine what this might do for the country and all this stuff. With the women's game, it is in this point where, as a launch pad, right? Like just where it's at, the growth is so exponential year on year that you wonder, like, what is going to happen next? I think Spain, if they get their shit together in terms of like really having selection situations not down to 15 players wanting to mutiny, if like they have it together, they've got two of the biggest brands in world football who are more than happy to have quality teams. Real Madrid and Barcelona. I mean, Atleti are a good team as well in La Liga, and like those brands will continue to drive. Like they're huge clubs. They will continue to drive things. The question
Real
then
Madrid in
becomes,
particular are just sorry to cut you off. Real Madrid in particular are just now putting into the women's team. They're just now putting
yeah,
in
they're
resources.
way behind Barcelona. Yeah,
Absolutely, Barcelona and Atleti are the two teams in Spain who have really, been pillars for the sport. Real Madrid are just playing catch up, and they they had one of their own score of the game winning goal today.
yep.
So yeah, they're a bit behind, but Barcelona, Atleti, you could even use some other smaller clubs like a Levante or a Villarreal also.
But
But
you can
you're
see
going to make
these
a
team. You can see this national team going to, I assume, the World Cup. I assume the Olympics. I think they're going to the Olympics. Are they going to the Olympics? Whatever that. I need
uh
to do some research here on the women's Olympics and see what's going
Nations
to
League.
happen with that. So there's Nations League first. That's how they qualify. Okay, because I thought I remember that how you finished in the last Olympics would determine part of how you'd finish in. I don't know. Either way,
No, it used to
they've got.
be funny
Yeah,
system. It used to be top four finishers in the World Cup qualified,
that's right. That's
which is
right.
stupid.
Yeah, it's dumb, but the women's tournament at the Olympics is not an under 23 tournament with like three older players. It's the full team. So that'll be interesting. And that's next year. And then the
Yep.
Euros will come, I believe, the following year. And then there's 2 years before
Euro
the
is in
World Cup.
2025.
Because 2021 got postponed to 2022. That was the thing.
Yes.
So
Yes, and it's going to be in Switzerland.
okay, yeah. So this is what I want to know is, can Spain win another tournament in the next two or three and actually really stamp down, or at least do what England have done: semifinal of the World Cup, final of the Euros, final of another World Cup. I think, just a sustained a sustained dominance in a way, not necessarily winning all the time, being one of the top teams. I think where they're at, they look like they will be. They just look
Yeah.
ahead of everybody else. And like I said, if they can just get everything together and make sure that they have, things going in the right direction, this could be the torchbearer for the next 5 to 10 years in women's football. In terms of, this could be their cycle, if you want, of like a 5 to 8 year period of time. It'd be really interesting.
Similar to the men's side of 08 to 2012.
Yep. I mean, this is the thing about teams. Once you have a really, really good one and you have a lot of talent backing up. I mean, France went to the French men when they went to the 2016 European final. They won the 2018 World Cup. Yeah, okay, the Euros in 2022, they went out in the quarterfinal, but then final of the next World Cup. And it's like, you can see those cycles go with teams where they can be very good for a few tournaments in a row. And I think Spain has the opportunity to be, the best team in the world essentially for the next 4 to 6 years on the women's side. And I think that'd be interesting. How will they build from here?
Yeah, man, it can only get better. It's the World Cup. You're already at the pinnacle, but there's an Olympics coming up next year. Don't take your foot off the gas. You had to win the Nations League, or at least you had to be one of the Nations League group winners. I think I don't know how specifically the qualification works. I just know the qualification is through Nations League. But yeah, it. You there's no way else to go but up for Spain. The Olympics are next. The Euros right after that. Can you really stay up on your high horse? I think they can. I agree.
Well, look, I'm with you completely that this was the best Women's World Cup I've ever seen. Like you said, the expanded field made you kind of wonder, especially when there was a 13-0 to open the last World Cup for the U.S. And yes, Vietnam were the team that took the biggest ass whooping. I think it was the 7-0 against the Netherlands. But overall, this was way better competitively. I thought
Yes.
the refereeing was interesting. I'll just say that I thought that it was incredible the types of fouls that were allowed to go unbooked at times. Sometimes I was like, wow. I mean, they are letting
How
everything go here. But hey, they wanted that the
how
games
often
kept
do we
going.
how often do we see a referee officiate the semifinal and then the final of the same tournament?
I don't know. I don't know if FIFA, if that's sort of how, I'm not sure. But I will also say, it's pretty cool to see the Women's World Cup, to see all these, to see new things started. So I think the first instances of VAR at the World Cup were done in the Women's World Cup uh, in 2019. I think it was when they really first used VAR at the World Cup. Then here they did the
Yes.
first thing where the VAR, where the officials announced to the crowd like what the final result of the VAR decision was. There's some new things that they brought in, and I thought it was cool to see these referees do what we're gonna be seeing in a lot of respects, and see the evolution. And honestly, I saw some good referees. I saw some that I was like, yo, this is like, you got to make calls or you're gonna lose this game. You're gonna totally lose
Shouts to
control.
Melissa Shouts to Melissa Borjas of Honduras, the motherland, for sending off Lauren James. Just want
Oh
to put that
yeah,
out there.
nice.
No, but the refereeing has definitely been. It was good. I'm not gonna say it was the best ever. It was good. Definitely, like you said, a lot of plays were, a lot was allowed to, pass by. The World Cup in itself was very innovative. It was revolutionary, and I think it lived up to the Beyond Greatness slogan they used for the World Cup.
I agree. Um, Man, it's kind of funny to think about like World Cup commercials and sort of promos for this World Cup. It was hard to find much. And we were blessed to see. I think it's interesting actually, just because I want to mention this before we close it out here. But
Talk to
we
me.
talked about the United States having their that commercial that created bulletin board material is the US against the world. Anyone who has not seen that, I'm not sure if that's even on YouTube anymore. You probably look for it and it's just gone,
Yeah,
except for reaction videos to it, maybe. Who knows? But if anyone hasn't seen it, the French also put out a similar, not a similar, they put out their own sort of promo video for the World Cup. If you haven't seen it, it's really interesting. It's like they photoshopped the males' faces on instead of the females. So they kind of, they not Photoshop. They did really, really high-end video editing
yeah, like
to make it
augmented
look like
reality.
Griezmann and like Mbappe are scoring these goals. And then then halfway through the commercial, they show you actually, no, it's not them. Here are the tricks we did. And these are actually the women scoring these goals. These are actually the women doing this and everything. It was kind of to show like, yeah, like you could, it's also got some quality. It's also good. And I think that actually was a commercial that was backed up where we got to see, there were way fewer moments in this World Cup for me of, oh my goodness, like that just looks so like non-professional. The goalkeeping was better than I've ever seen it at this World Cup. The technical ability of every single team involved, you could see that they were actual players, not just like PE teachers who were like, I mean, we made it, let's go, and I think that what a massive step for the women's game to see that. And I just thought that it was interesting, the dichotomy of those two commercials. The US puts out one that's like, yeah, and no one can beat us. We're the best. Like this women's game is huge. We fought for equal pay. We're the ones that get paid. We have all this, and it doesn't work for them. And then you have this other commercial that's just about like, just take a look. You can enjoy this too. And I think that was the right message. And I think it was the World Cup really did like deliver. I think that this would have been
You're
a
right.
far more exciting experience had it not been, 1, 2, 3, 4 a.m. kickoffs.
Oh my
But
god,
that's what you get with that area of the world. That's being where we are.
I hated that,
Yeah,
man.
it was tough.
It's, it's funny because like they scheduled some games with the hope that the U.S. would be playing in them. Only for the U.S. They didn't finish second in the group. Like Spain versus Netherlands quarterfinal start at 10 o'clock p.m. here in New York. That was doubly meant for the U.S. to play in that.
Yep, yep.
But here we are. The U.S. wasn't even at that point of the tournament. No, but I love that French commercial. I don't think we ever spoke about that. Not even on our space, but I loved that commercial. It was like you
Very
said,
well done.
yeah, you can enjoy the women's game too. They need your support as much as the men do. I definitely enjoyed that. I like Telemundo's bit as well, where they highlighted players like Hermoso and Caicedo and stuff like that. But I love that French commercial. The U.S. was again American exceptionalism personified. The arrogance was there. The French one was just let's get behind these girls.
Yep. And
But yeah,
I think it was just a great advert for the women's game. We're gonna see differences over time. We're definitely gonna see some changes and things go.
and
Um,
like I said to start, for the most part, I is no longer the rest of the world is catching up. The rest of the world is caught up. Most of the rest of the world, at least. We're at
yeah,
that point.
100. Well, Europe 100% is caught up, right? I
Europe
think it
100%.
was 7 of the 8 quarterfinalists were European. Is that what it was? I think Colombia was the only
Uh,
non-European quarterfinalist, something like that.
Colombia and Australia.
Oh, Australia, that's right. Okay. I mean,
But even Australia too, like they themselves, like sure, you may have. I don't think them making it as far as they did was a fluke. I think the semifinal was appropriate. I didn't think they would win it, but the fact they even got this far with a good team that, for the most part, did not rely on Sam Kerr. I Australia, I think they're up there now. They are up there, I think, and they could have beat U.S. for a bronze medal at the last Olympics. I think so. Australia, I think they're up there. Some nations you've seen kind of regress, like China, they've regressed a bit.
yeah, Norway
North
for
Korea were
sure.
Norway, absolutely. Germany and Brazil, this may be hiccups in the road.
I think for
At least
Germany,
I
it's
hope
just a
they are.
hiccup in the road. I think Germany were unlucky to go out. They really were. Like the game against Colombia could have gone either way. They lose with like the last header. I mean, if they don't lose with the last one of the last plays the game, the header. I mean, they go through because they won their last game. It was just the fact that Morocco went and beat Colombia, who already had 6 points. That's the only reason Morocco beating Colombia is the reason Germany really are out. Um, because essentially they did most of what they had to do. They just it just didn't work out for them.
Brazil had
Brazil,
to find a way to replace Marta.
well, they've
They
just got
have
to,
to,
yeah, there's just got to be the new generation of players has to stand up. Um, and I think
and
that
some
could
of them are.
happen. Yeah.
Some of them are. Like some of them were on this national team. Like I've said many a time, I love Bruninha in a back line. She's a solid defender. Like she has the ability to to make a world legend like a Sophia Jakobsen, like shiver her timbers, I guess. She's a good defender. It's just like Borges, the one who had the hat trick.
Yep.
Again, like some of these players are really, really good. They're just like you said, the rest of the youth movement in Brazil has to stand up. That's why I think for Brazil is also a bump in the road. And you could say the same for Canada to an extent.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, Canada's in a weird position. We know about their federations in a hole at the moment, both men's and women's side. Um, yeah, I mean,
Broke
just
ass
so many
federation.
positive stories overall. I think that it's a anything that left a small sour taste in your mouth, you can wash out with some punch because there was a lot of good stuff at this World Cup, and I'm glad for the U.S. team. They got a little bit of a wake up call, and
A little bit.
Yeah, no,
A
I mean,
lot of it, but yes,
yeah, but also I think, it's a team they're gonna change. There's so much talent in this country. It's not gonna stop. There's gonna be good players.
you're
And
right.
I, I
You're right.
I think it's cool that the rest of the world is caught up now, because now who's your quarterfinalists at every World Cup? Like, now you really have to ask yourself these questions. It's getting similar to the men's side where you just don't know. And I think that's what makes it, especially in this format. I hope the Women's World Cup does not expand to 48 teams anytime soon, because let's face it, everyone, 2026 is going to be an epic mess. It's going to be so many games.
Crapshoot.
It's going to be insane. It might be fun. It's going to be fun because the World Cup's always good, but it might be
Yes,
complete chaos, just like total chaos in terms of keeping up with what's going on. Stories happening too fast to stick with and settle on. I don't know. It might just be a little bit over the top, but
a
this
little bit.
was a fantastic tournament. Obviously, our time zones were not the best for it, but hey, you can't blame the host for where they are. It's not their fault. Do you have
Yep.
any closing statements on any of it? Anything?
Um. First things first. Fuerza Olga Carmona. Uh. Crazy how you're gonna go from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows in less than 24 hours, in less than 12 hours. Um.
Yeah.
I love the. I am happy at where the women's game is, and I can't wait to see the game grow. And I'm glad we are doing our parts in that. And whereas some people would just cover the women's game as virtue signaling, whereas others like ourselves, we are actually into the sport. It's football at the end of the day. We give a fuck. Um, I I can't wait to see where we go from here. Uh, I'm looking forward to the Olympics, the next Euros, the next World Cup. It's gonna be fun. We're in a good place in the women's game now than what we were when we first started the tournament.
It's funny you just mentioned the Olympics, looking forward to it, and I was like, yeah, am I? And then I realized why that was my initial thought, because I just thought, what were the last Olympics like? They were those empty ass Tokyo Olympics with just like these games that felt like they had zero. I mean, it was COVID football. It was no one in the crowds. It was interesting to hear, the benches and the, players in the field talk, but it was terrible television. It was
and this is
awful
coming off
entertainment.
of and this is coming off a Euro in the same summer that had some type of crowd.
Yeah, I know, right? Um, but
So
look,
like the
I know well, Japan was yeah, a little bit different, right? But overall, I think that'll be great. The Olympics coming back, they'll be in Paris,
in Paris,
and
yes.
so that'll be, I'm sure. I would imagine France will do a slightly better job this time of promoting the women's team, especially if they, I mean, it's a great chance for the French women to get on the board. They don't have any title they have zero titles in women's football history. So for France next year, that's a big deal. Obviously, for the U.S. to make a comeback, England to try and get a lot. Think of how many teams next year's Olympics is a major, major, major event for. It's a major
Not
time to prove a
England,
point.
not England, Great Britain.
Oh, that's right. Correct. Great Britain will be the Olympic. And so that'll be interesting, right? How they fare. But, can Spain follow it up? Can they really assert themselves? Do we get a random sort of surprise winner, kind of like Canada at the last ones? I know they deserved it, but they were definitely a surprise winner. Um, does anyone else surprise us? I think it's going to be really cool to see. So,
I want to see
Ronnie,
Barbara Banda again.
yeah, I know, and actually, Zambia. I had higher hopes for Zambia at this World Cup, but also they were in a group that was going to be brutal for them. I mean, Spain and Japan were lethal in the group stage. So, Ronnie, where to find you guys? Right, you're 1/3 of the Footy Misfits. Tell the people where to find you, because we are I'd say tight show friends at this point. We have been on each other's
Oh,
programs
we
multiple
absolutely are.
times. We're full on
The only thing
family at
that's
this
left
point.
is absolutely the only thing that's left is for us to go to Colorado or for you to come to New York. That's the only thing that's left at this point.
Yeah, and we got
Uh,
to do a live show in person. It's yeah.
we have to. We definitely have to. We would definitely be down at Footy Misfits on all the social platforms. Definitely more active on Instagram and the Football Misfits podcast on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to the podcasts. We did take a little bit of a break because we're pouring into our women's footy content. But come next Sunday, we're going to record a new up. And yeah, back to the club game. Putting all of our time into that. The Champions League is less than a month away, and the women's season should be beginning in about a month or two. So find us at Footy Misfits on socials and the Football Misfits podcast wherever you listen. Boom pow. And next time I will make sure whether it's our space or yours, all three of us will be there, not
I,
just me.
I mean, it's always a challenge to get like a group of 4 people in different places to get on a call, but we have done it before. We will do it again. And yeah, no, really just a huge shout out to you guys because there are not very many channels that cover the wide extents of football, and Footy Misfits cover literally everything. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who took a break during the Women's World Cup. We're like, good, I don't need to do anything for the next couple weeks. And I've actually now I've been writing up my what I'm going to do for the start of the Premier League. I've got 6 questions for the Premier League season that I'm currently putting together. So yeah, it's a quick turnaround, as you said. We've got to jump on it.
Ange Postecoglou will get Spurs to top 4. Boom, I said it.
Yeah, one of my points is the evolution of Spurs. I mean, Harry Kane leaving the club. It's a very very interesting time for Spurs. And I mean, look, also, I mean, the Women's Super League, like, we've talked about the women's game so much here. The Women's Super League, I think, is going to be fascinating. Are there going to be teams going and breaking the bank for, big stars and really supercharging that league? An English team wants to win the Champions League. How are they going to make that happen? How can they defeat, Barcelona and Wolfsburg and Bayern Munich, who seem to always be quite good? But this is the thing. The beautiful game is rolling on. Footy Misfits have you covered on so many topics. You got to check them out. Please
Can't
do.
stop, won't stop.
And obviously, there's always crossovers there. So it is Sunday, August 20th. The Women's World Cup is over. On to the next one. Peace and love, everybody.
Hey, adios, mi gente.